Good day. Today we are going to discuss the domains of learning in engineering education. So when an engineering student enters the university, he or she has to demonstrate that the learning outcomes that were laid out at the beginning of the programs have been achieved. The question here is how the learning outcomes are actually achieved. The common perception is that the learning outcomes are achieved through the cognitive domain. So cognitive domain is when the teacher prepares a lecture, includes certain topics and prepares handouts, maybe some worksheets and some other tasks, and goes in the classroom. The student also enters the classroom with a view to learn certain new topics, and they both are sort of in a common frame of mind. The teacher will deliver certain topics, the student will absorb that information, and the lecture is over. So this is a formal structured way, and something similar happens in the laboratories also, where there is a laid out lab manual that the students generally follow. So this is a structured way of learning and requires thinking in a in a narrow setting in terms of classrooms and laboratories, and this is commonly perceived as the cognitive domain. In fact, in actual practice, this is only 60 to 65% of the total learning that the student acquires or achieves during the course of a program, of a degree program. And so where does the other 35% learning comes from? So that comes from two other domains, one of which is the affective domain. So affective domain is when a student learns from the behavior and environment of other people around him. It could be instructor, it could be the lab staff, it could be the other factors that influence the environment of a university, the library, the dining center, the sports facilities, so many other things. And even within the labs, there is teamwork, there is communication skills, the presentations that the student gives, the poster that he makes, etc. So that all is again important part of learning, but that takes place through the affective domain. The last important domain of learning in engineering education especially is the psychomotor domain. So psychomotor is the skills that somebody acquires to operate machinery, to operate or use test instruments, to connect different wires, to connect different pieces of equipment. Uh, Sometimes it could be following certain instructions, and sometimes it could be left open for the student to experiment and figure out certain things. So there's a lot of learning that takes place, even operating computers and softwares in a certain way to make things operational. So all these fall under the psychomotor domain, and now you would agree that all these domains are important. So while majority of learning takes place in the cognitive domain, the psychomotor domain and the affective domain are equally important, and they should not be ignored. So to sum up, we have these three domains of learning: cognitive learning that takes place in a structured environment in a classroom or a laboratory. Number two is the affective domain that takes place from the behavior and the environment. And number three is the psychomotor learning that takes place through laboratory and training, developing the motor skills of operating and using certain machinery or instruments. So that is all for today. Thank you very much. Keep in touch. Bye bye.